Well, let's see if I need to move this around any. Is that better? How's that? All right, excellent. Hey, good morning and welcome. I am thrilled to see you here. I am absolutely terrified to be standing up here. I don't preach very often, and this just absolutely drives me nuts. But no, I'm just kidding. I love the opportunity to get to share. And I want to start off with just a quick story. About 50 years ago, matter of fact, it was 50 years ago last Saturday. Now, I wasn't born, but I was just about 3 months from being born. So I was alive, but it was still hanging out with my mom. And there was a really, really cool thing that happened. A couple guys landed on the moon. I don't know if you've kept up with that last Saturday. Raise your hand if you remember that, seeing it on TV and all that. That's some pretty exciting stuff. This was something that as a nation, we just rallied around. And when they came home, oh, the party. Matter of fact, we've got some footage of it, and we're gonna roll that because I want you guys to see what happened when these three guys came home. Here we go. All right, it was quite the scene. These three astronauts, let me see, it was Neil Armstrong, Buzz Aldrin, and the George Harrison of the group, Michael Collins. They get to come home, and everybody is just celebrating. Maybe I should use George Lazenby. I don't know, that would have been a better one. They come home, and crowds are going nuts. They get this ticker tape parade. The crowds are cheering. You got marching bands. You got shirtless men waving swords. I mean, this is a party. These guys are having so much fun. They're marching down, and they get the whole, it feels like you're walking through a canyon of just cheering and stuff. I don't know how long the parades went. I don't know if anybody here was a part of one of those parades or got to see those parades or saw them on TV. But when they came home, they got welcomed home. There was a lot of excitement. It reminds me of a trip Sherry and I took a couple weeks ago. We were going to Salt Lake City. She had a conference there, and so I tagged along with her. And we flew from here to Dallas. And when we were waiting there in the airport at Dallas, we got to noticing there's an awful lot of young men in suits. And it didn't take us too long to figure out what was going on, but there were several Latter-day Saints heading back to Salt Lake City. They had been out on mission, and so there was a pretty good group of them, at 30 or 40 or so, on this one flight. Well, when we got off the plane and we start walking through the airport, the closer we're getting to the baggage area where like people can go without security, the cheering, I couldn't believe it. I was like, what is going on? And the closer we got, the louder it got. And when we rounded the corner, I'm saying hundreds, I don't know how many people were there, welcoming this group home. They had been gone for about 2 years to South America, and there was family members, and there was banners, and there was cheering, and Sherry and I are walking in the middle of all of this. We're on a lot of people's cell phone videos in the middle of their celebrations, so we're going to live forever in, hey, there's those people walking through there. But we were just surrounded by crowds of cheering people. Welcome home. Welcome home. We're glad you're back. This is where you belong. Welcome home. And that's what I want to chat with you just a few minutes about this morning. This lesson is not brought to you by Whataburger. They didn't pay me one bit. So you'll just have to ignore that for a bit. We'll get there in just a second. This idea of home and coming home. It's summertime. We've been on lots of vacations or spent some time away. Some kids have been at camp. Boy, there's nothing like coming home, is there? Boy, there's nothing quite like, I mean, as great as all of these things are that we get to go do, there's just nothing quite like coming home. And I got to tell you, I really debated over whether or not to wear pajama pants and slippers to preach in this morning. I thought, that's probably a bit too far. I'll leave that for Jesse sometime. I'm sure he'll pull that off. Home, it's comfortable. Maybe you've got a chair that you like. Maybe you have pajama pants and slippers that don't leave the house, you know. They're there for home. Maybe it's a bathrobe. I don't know. We don't want to see pictures. It stays there because it's comfortable. It's where you belong. It has that feeling, and you know exactly what I'm talking about. This idea of welcome home. Well, I don't know about you, but I think that's a picture of the church. I think that a place to belong. There's several ministries that we have that's a big part of what we're doing. Trying to help people know and believe and fully embrace this idea of you belong here. With student ministries and children's ministries, we want to make sure that you feel welcome. We want to make sure that you know that you are loved and that you are a part. And so I want to just for a few minutes chat about this idea of just being welcoming and being home and being a place where you belong. This is not a, well, let me just stop and say before I move any further, I know that home, and I get this, home is not always a good memory for some people. And I understand that there's trouble in this world, and there are places where it's not welcoming and safe and comfortable. But out of all the places, I want to say that this place should be. This place should be the kind of place where when you come home, well, okay, so maybe we don't have shirtless men waving swords around, but we're going to be welcoming. Okay, we're going to be cheering. We're going to say, come on in. This should be the kind of place. Now, when God starts talking about the kind of place that He wants and what it's like to be in relationship with Him, a couple scriptures come to mind because the Bible uses a couple different kind of word pictures here. First one from John chapter 1, verse 12. I just want to read this. It says, "But to all who did receive Him, He gave them the right to become the children of God." That puts us in God's family. To those who are in Christ, gave them the right to be in God's family, a place where you're at home. It's a family. We are children of God. As Tim read just a few minutes ago, sometimes the Bible describes His people as sheep, as a flock of sheep. And I know that we don't really do the whole sheep thing very well because it's just, not many shepherds in here in that sense. But we do understand, because we've read the Bible and we've studied it enough to where we get the idea, the concept that when God would speak to His people about being a good shepherd, and when He would speak to them about being, you're the sheep in my hands and I'm going to care for you, this is something they understood, and what they knew was that this was a welcoming, safe, place to be. There's one that the Bible doesn't use. There's probably good reason for it, but I want to use it this morning. And that's cookie. God's people, this place should be like a big cookie. He kind of does a little bit of that, and I hope that you don't get lost on this one today, because that's where I'm going to land for a few minutes, is this idea of us being this one big cookie. Well, actually, here's the way he words it, and I'm gonna try and match these up a little bit. Romans chapter 12, verses 4 through 5. It's not a cookie, but it's a body. Now we have many parts in one body, and all the parts do not have the same function. In the same way, we who are many are one body in Christ, and individually members of one another. And so I know that maybe we don't relate to the sheep kind of thing so well, but I know that we can relate to a body. I think we all have a body that has a lot of different parts. We get that. And that's why Paul used that, because we can understand that. And so what I want to do for a few minutes here is, well, I want to make some cookies. Because, and you'll just have to bear with me here. Oh, by the way, I got my Levy ladies apron. There we go. That's awesome. There we go. So, different parts of the cookie. And the internet, man, it's fantastic. You can learn all sorts of things from the internet. So we got butter, right? When we're making cookies, we got to start out with butter. Butter adds quite a good bit of flavor. Now, you may be a margarine person, and if you're old enough to remember this, you might be an oleo person. Ask your grandparents what oleo is. It's the same as margarine. It's just we just called it different things at different times. So a good cookie, starts with some butter. Now adds a nice flavor to the cookie. I hope this works. I've made cookies before, but let's see here. Oh, by the way, and if you use this is a little tip. If you use real butter, it's going to spread out further than if you use margarine. It has a lower melting point, and so it kind of spreads out a little bit better. So it depends on what you want there. Sugar. There's sugar in cookies. I'm gonna add a little bit of white sugar. Hope that was sugar, not salt. We're going to be in trouble here. Sugar as it cooks, it caramelizes and adds a little bit of a brown color to it. Of course, obviously, the sugar is going to make things sweet, right? That's a good thing about the sugar. Well, we're not just going to add white sugar, though, because we're going to add another ingredient that has some good qualities to it as well. We're going to add some brown sugar. Maybe you don't know this. It took me way too long in life to know this, and I shouldn't have waited so long to figure this out. But you know what makes brown sugar brown? It's molasses. If you didn't know that, now you know. Light brown sugar has about 10% molasses, and dark brown sugar, the internet, man, it's great. Internet has about 20% molasses. Adds a little moisture to the cookie. Adds that special flavor. I love brown sugar in my cookies. Can't have cookies without that. So we're just going to mix that up a little bit. I told you you're going to learn a whole lot more about cookies than you ever really wanted this morning. But, the sugar in there kind of makes the cookies a little bit chewier too. It's a good thing. So we got to mix that up a little bit. Let's see here. I went ahead and cracked the eggs, so don't have to make a big mess this morning. But eggs. We're going to put some eggs in these cookies. All right. Not only does that add moisture, but it kind of bonds with the flour and stuff later on. Kind of gives it some structure to it. That's a good thing, like that. So far, they're a little lumpy right now. We're going to get there eventually. But let's see, what's missing in the wet ingredients here up front? What are we missing? Well, we're going to get to the flour in just a second. Let's put a cup of vanilla in there. All right. Yeah, that's about a teaspoon. That's pretty close, don't you think? All right, so you get these and then you blend them all together. Now, I mean, there's an art to cookies. There's a reason why all of these ingredients are in there in the basic cookie. They each have a role. Some of them help the cookie stay moist. Some of them help it have a certain kind of flavor. The vanilla. Did you know not only does vanilla, again, this is the internet, this is not me. The vanilla is really good about bringing out the flavor in other things as well, kind of like the way salt does. It's kind of cool. Well, if you can believe the internet. So, all right, that's close enough for this project. I've got all the dry ingredients. I've already got them measured out. Let's see now, what do we have first? We got, the bulk of it is flour, right? So we put in a little bit of flour. I think usually the recipes call for about 2.25 cups of flour, because we're making chocolate chip cookies, right? So what good is flour in a cookie? Well, kind of gives it some substance, some structure there. If you were to be making shortbread, now if you're making shortbread, you'd want to have a little bit more flour because that helps it maintain its shape when it's baking. You've noticed the difference between like cake batter is super runny, right? And so there's kind of two different sides. There's less flour over here, and there's more flour in like a shortbread. But a cookie is kind of this is kind of a drop cookie, right? So we need it to be a little stiff but not runny. So we put the flour in. That certainly helps. Let's see here. What else is in that mixture? We got baking soda. Now, we don't talk about baking soda a whole lot in church because we're usually talking about unleavened things, right? But we are going to leaven these. And not only does the baking soda, and I learned so much. Not only does the baking soda provide a leavening, but did you know that the baking soda, do we have any science teachers in here? Any science teachers? I see, yeah. So if we're looking at the pH scale, which direction is baking soda? It's more on the alkaline side, right? Right. Well, do you know it counteracts some of the acid that's on the other side? It kind of serves as a balancing agent in there. Not only does it leaven, but it kind of helps out balance some of the things, and it helps cookies brown. I didn't know that. It helps cookies brown, which is kind of funny because one of the things that it counteracts is brown sugar. Oh well, brown sugar keeps your cookies from browning, but if you put in a little bit of soda, we put a teaspoon in here, that helps your cookies brown, and we kind of like that brown color to it. And then there's salt. Of course, we got salt in here. And for today's purposes, that's going to be enough right there of all that mixture because we got to move on. But salt. Not only does salt enhance the flavors, but get this, and I'm going to read this because I thought this was cool. Did you know, internet, did you know that it also strengthens, I never thought about this, it strengthens the proteins in the dough, making the cookies chewier. I don't know. I'm not a scientist, but I know that it works. Whether or not that's really what happens or not, sure. The point is, we have got a nice bit of cookie dough here. I didn't put all the flour in there because I'm tired of stirring. Now we've got enough for chocolate. Oh, whoops. No, we don't. We don't have enough for chocolate chip cookies quite yet. Now we're going to have the chocolate chip cookies. And, of course, the major role of chocolate chips and chocolate chip cookies is, well, it makes them chocolate chip cookies. All right, so there we go. That's science right there. That's the science part of that. All right. So now we've got chocolate chip cookies. I didn't know until I started reading how many, at least the variety of different things that each of these brought. At least what is the function of each of these parts. And when Paul says church, it's like a body, and all of these things kind of work together. And I got to think, well, cookies and all these things do work together. What would happen if you left out a couple of these ingredients? You could still get by, but it wouldn't be the best cookie it could be, would it? You could leave out the salt. I mean, there's plenty of sugar in here, right? It wouldn't be a sour, bitter cookie, but that salt brings it out. You could leave out the vanilla. but it wouldn't be all a cookie could be. And I want us to think about, just as we kind of go through this, we need to be like a bunch of cookies. We need to be a big cookie. Everybody has a role to play. Everybody has a part. Everybody has a skill, has a talent. Right after that section in Romans 12 where he says you're the body, he makes this list. He makes this list of spiritual gifts. Now, it's not an exhaustive list, but go back and read it. Romans chapter 12. And he says, some of you have the gift of this, and some of you have the gift of this. It's the gift of prophecy and the gift of teaching and the gift, all of these different gifts. We are given gifts. And in this big cookie thing that we've got going on here, each of us has gifts. Now, here's the key to that. They are given us so that we can use them. We have these gifts so that we use them. I didn't read on that list, and I don't want to step on your toes too hard. This is my first time up here. I didn't read on that list, and to some we're given the gift of sitting in a pew. I didn't see that on the list. Matter of fact, I've read the whole Bible a couple times, and I've never seen that in there. God has given you the gift of, show up on Sunday and then go home and that's it. Make sure you keep a pew warm. I didn't find that in there. Don't mean to step too hard, but I got side story here. I got a dentist friend. He's a good country boy. He calls them pew ticks. They're just dug into their pew and they're not going anywhere. That's what they do. They're just a pew tick. That's not on the list of spiritual gifts. That's not on the list of things that God has given us so that we can have the best body possible. This cookie is full of all sorts of ingredients that bring something to the table. And He's called us to not just sit here. He's called us to use those gifts. So I want you to look around. We started off kind of talking about making this place a welcoming place, and that church of all places should be a welcoming place. And seriously, just look around and what ingredients are missing? Well, today we've got a lot of people out on different trips and different things like that. And so what a perfect example, what a perfect time to be having this lesson. When they come back, celebrate them coming back. Make them feel welcome. Make them feel welcome. You don't have to go shirtless and wave a sword, but that would be kind of weird. Might be funny, but you know what it means to be welcoming. And you look around and see what's missing. Who is missing? Are we the kind of place that's a welcoming place that feels like home, and when I'm not there, I wish I could get back there? That's the goal of church. God created this thing for us. Now, there's an ingredient missing in my chocolate chip cookies here. And some of y'all are going to have immediate reactions to this, maybe quite literally. There's nuts. I don't know how you feel about walnuts in your chocolate chip cookies. Matter of fact, I think there's probably two really, really strong camps. We got a thumbs up in the back. All right. Matter of fact, raise your hand if you are a fan of walnuts in chocolate chip cookies. Okay. Raise your hand if you are absolutely not a fan. No way, they don't belong in chocolate chip cookies. All right, this is not a democracy. We're not going to do... Walnuts. I'm one of these guys that's in the middle. I can take it or I can leave it. I'll eat them. I like cookies with nuts in them. I love walnuts. But there's some times that I just really like a cookie without walnuts in them. I'm kind of in between there. Sorry for those of you in this room that don't like the walnuts in your cookies. Because we got walnuts in the church. I don't know how far I'm going to be able to take this without just completely, stepping over the bounds and losing it, but here's the deal. And unfortunately, it's the nuts that's the up for debate part here. Unfortunately. But I do want to be very serious about this. And I gotta tread a little bit lightly. Some of us are walnuts. Either by choice or by the way that we've been made to feel. Some of us feel like we don't belong in this cookie. Some of us have been made to feel like you have no part in a good cookie. And that's what I want to challenge you with. Walnuts belong in the cookie, not the real cookie, but walnuts belong. Those who don't feel like they're a part, they need to be made to feel a part. Sometimes there's just a disconnect there. Sometimes there's some miscommunication, and I don't know all the situations. But sometimes things have happened to where the rest of these ingredients over here have not done a good job of making the walnuts feel like they belong. That's on the cookie dough over here, to be welcoming and open up and say, no, you belong. As you look around, there are some people that they haven't quite connected. They don't quite feel like they belong. Maybe they feel like, you're good with them or without them. They're kind of either way. You don't really have that good solid, nope, I want you here. Some people may feel like they're in the middle. Some people might even be walnuts by choice. And this is where I'm most in danger of stepping on toes. You may like that level of non-commitment that, it's kind of okay if I'm there, kind of okay if I'm not. It's okay if I'm left out. I kind of like it that way because that way I don't have to get too involved. Well, this is my first time. It may be my last time. I don't want to step too hard, but I do want you to hear me say, there's not much room for, there's not much room, that's a bad way of saying it. I don't see a good argument in the Bible for this non-commitment. I'm not going to be involved. I can take it or leave it. And hear me 100%, this is not about church attendance. That's what I'm talking about. I'm talking about being involved in the body of Christ. This is not me trying to make sure that we have great numbers every week. We can have great numbers every week and still not be the cookie that we need to be. This is about being more than just here. This is about being a part, being a vital part, and using your gifts that God has given you. Because every time you see these lists, God, it says, hey, He's given these gifts. Now use them. Time after time, we could go through story after story in the Bible of people that didn't use their gift, or parables about using your gifts. Suffice it to say, sometimes we got walnuts, and maybe we're a little too comfortable in our walnuttiness. Well, here's the thing. There's going to come a day. There's going to come a day. It's going to be the last day. Gates are going to open. And we're going to be welcomed to our final home. And I don't care right now if you're much of a hugger or not much of a hugger, but when God throws open those gates and we walk in and He's standing there with open arms and He says, welcome home, all of us are going to be turning into huggers because we're just going to be lining up. And we're not going to want to let go. It's going to be the greatest welcome home party ever. And I cannot wait That sounds exciting. That sounds awesome. I have no idea what it's going to look like, what it's going to be like, but everything that I have read tells me that it's going to be fantastic and it's going to blow my mind and I'm never going to want to leave ever. And it's going to be a place where I belong. But until that point, until that time, this is what we've got. Until that time, this was God's plan. He said, I'm going to establish the church, and that's going to be the body. That's going to be where my people are, and it's got to be a place that welcomes. It's got to be a place that feels like home temporarily until we get to the real home. It's got to be a place where we all have a part, and we're all busy about doing God's business, because that's the plan. Now, I don't know. I don't know all your individual stories. I don't know what all's been going on. I don't know if you've been offended, you've been touched, you've been moved, or if you've just kind of sit there and ignored me most of the time. I don't know. That's between you and God. But Kajan's about to lead us in a song. And what we're going to do during that time is, if you got something on your heart, you get to share it with us. And, well, thank you for your time. Kajana, let's sing some song.
Just as I am without one thing, but